Mark, dear friend, dear guests, dear teams, journalists, today we welcome to Ukraine our friend and ally on the eve of the Independence Day of Ukraine. And I mean ally in every sense of the word. Mark has helped Ukraine, our defense, our relations with other partners during all these years. Since the beginning of this war, since the start of the full-scale invasion, both during his term as Prime Minister of the Netherlands and now as NATO Secretary General. We highly appreciate your personal support, Mark. I thank you very much. And today we've discussed first and foremost which of our next joint steps can give Ukraine and all of Europe more of security and bring the real end to the war closer. First is security guarantees. We have achieved together with all our partners an important mutual understanding with the United States of America. The US is ready to be part of the security guarantees for Ukraine, and this is for the first time that we've reached such readiness. Now, virtually every day, the negotiations on the specific content of security guarantees for Ukraine are ongoing on the level of NSAs, on the level of our military diplomats of all teams. Yesterday, there was a call, Ukraine, all of Europe and the US. Today, such work will continue, and I'm grateful to everybody who's involved in this. Our general aim is what is formulated in the dialogue with our partners as Article 5-like guarantees. That is like the 5th article of the NATO Treaty. These are really efficient security guarantees. This is the result that we must reach, so that the architecture is absolutely clear which countries help us on land, which are working to provide security in the skies, which ones guarantee security at sea and help Ukraine. Also, this is the question of financing for our army in the numbers and quality of the Ukrainian army that will be a protection for Ukraine. In many ways, this is based on our cooperation with NATO, with our partners, cooperation that we already have. Ukrainian army, our infrastructure, defense infrastructure and security infrastructure are very seriously integrated into the system of the alliance. There is a lot of bilateral cooperation with NATO members, and absolutely all practical levels of our cooperation with NATO we will continue. The second one is the weapons for our warriors. Now PURL program is working. Thank you so much, Mark, for this initiative. It's very strong. The program that allows to procure American weapons using the funds of the partners. This program now foresees $1.5 billion from our European partners. The new participants will join soon, and I thank everybody. This allows Ukraine to buy from America such undoubtedly needed things as air defense, of course, first and foremost, Patriots and missiles and HIMARS and other weapons. And I'd like to thank you, Mark, once again for the organization and for the coordination of this program. It's important that each month add finances to the program and efficiency. On average, it's $1 billion per month. We've discussed this with Mark. It can be $1 billion per month, maybe something like 1.5 billion. So we must work on that. We've discussed how to join more countries to the PURL program. Also, it's critical that to have sufficient financing for our programs of drone production. This was a second part of our conversation with our teams. Solely about the internal production. The Ukrainian potential to produce is way above our current financial capabilities, and we're working to close this gap. Today, Mark has already seen our drones, some of them, various types, very efficient ones. This is indeed #1 weapons. Weaponry that repels the enemy's attacks, holds the front line, and we decrease in such a way the numbers of losses, and that's probably the most important thing, that we decrease the amount of losses using drones. The Russians increase the usage of drones. We see that. We have everything for our countermeasures, and financing is important. In the near future, we must close the gap in financing. We have spoken about that already. It's not a secret. It's slightly more than $6 billion But nonetheless, we very much count on such support from our partners. Then the other thing is diplomacy. We've discussed the key details of our joint work to bring real, substantial negotiations to end the war. We are often in touch with Mark, often counseling how we should act better, especially in the context of partnership, the general partnership, and joint partnership with the United States of America, with President Trump. I believe that we have had a historically important visit to Washington, D.C., to the capital. We have agreed about the security guarantees that I've already mentioned. We have also discussed the formats of the meeting with the Russian chief, the bilateral and trilateral formats. You have all heard about that. It is at the level of leaders that the issues on how to end the war must be settled. But we now see that the Russians do everything so that the meetings do not take place. Ukraine, contrary to Russia, is not afraid of any meetings with the leaders. We are ready to work as productively as possible. We hope that the partners will help to ensure that the position of the Russian side is at least somewhat productive. They must be forced to diplomacy. Strong sanctions are indeed needed if they do not concede to diplomatical resolution of an end to the war, and we very much count on strong packages from the partners. We believe that everything must be done so that Russia cannot further hide from the meetings. We see strong signals coming from the United States that they are ready to move forward. Europe and other countries within the framework of the coalition of the willing are ready to help, and we are grateful for that. A serious platform of the coalition has been built. More than 30 countries, among which are Japan, Canada, and other countries. It's a pro-Ukrainian coalition that is sufficiently big, and it's important to implement everything. It's important. We're working on that. Glory to Ukraine. Statement by the Secretary General of NATO.
Dear Mr. President, dear Volodymyr, thank you for what is always a warm welcome to Ukraine. It's good to be here with you in country, and good to be with you again following a very important meeting in Washington earlier this week. 3.5 years after Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine continues to stand strong, and your friends and partners in NATO continue to stand with you. Our support is unwavering and continues to grow, including, as you said, through the new Prioritised Ukraine Requirements List, PURL, that supports a crucial flow of lethal US weapons to Ukraine through funding provided by NATO allies. In less than 1 month, indeed, this has already meant an additional $1.5 billion of essential equipment, air defense, ammunition, and more. Further packages will follow. Allies are supporting your defense industry, investing in ways that not only boost your security, but also bolster your economy. I have witnessed the innovation that Ukraine brings to the table with drones. Allies can learn a lot from Ukraine. And I listened carefully also to what you said about the need for more investments here. We are working together in Ensetu, the NATO command in Germany, to ensure your fighting forces have what they need both today but also into the future. We are working together in our joint assessment training and education center in Poland, through the NATO office here in Kyiv, through the NATO Ukraine Council. The list goes on. We are together because we share common values: freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. We are together because we share common cause in preserving the sovereignty and independence of Ukraine. Our security is interlinked. Dear Volodymyr, your country has been actively defending freedom for 3.5 years. Your people have seen terrible horrors and endured so many sleepless nights as Russia has continued to bombard homes and hospitals, industry and infrastructure. Ukrainian soldiers are fighting bravely. They have pushed back and held back the Russian invasion. We support you and salute you. And we stand with you in the push for a just and lasting peace. Indeed, we were together in Washington on Monday, along with the US President and so many European leaders, to seize the opportunity to end this horrible war and bring peace and security after so much suffering. President Trump has made this a priority, not only breaking the deadlock with Putin, but making clear that the United States will indeed be involved in providing security guarantees for Ukraine. Robust security guarantees will be essential, and this is what we are now working to define. So that when the time comes for you to enter that bilateral meeting, you have the unmistakable force of Ukraine's friends behind you, ensuring that Russia will uphold any deal and will never ever again attempt to take 1 square kilometer of Ukraine. Mr. President, dear Volodymyr, I commend your courage and your personal leadership, as well as the fortitude of the Ukrainian people. And as you prepare to mark this great country's Independence Day, know that NATO continues to stand with Ukraine. Thank you once again. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Шановні колеги,
Glory to heroes. Dear colleagues, it's time for your questions. Please, we Ukraine. Thank you for this opportunity. A lot of things have been said today about the security guarantees. Mr. President, you have mentioned that the military and the NSAs are working around the clock on that. So in these couple of days, maybe you have now more details. In particular, what will be the reaction mechanism? Shall we come under attack again? What do you think of the Lavrov statement that the security guarantees must also encompass Russia? Is it that they try to interfere in the security guarantee?
Guarantees differs from the Budapest memorandum, which did not protect us from the Russian invasion, which enforceable mechanism it have to include to make them real. Thank you so much.
Shall I start with the second question? Yes. Well, let's first agree the importance of the fact that Ukraine, the United States, and Europe are working together. And when we talk about security guarantees, let's also agree that there are 2 layers. Layer number 1 will be after a peace deal / a long-term ceasefire, or a combination of the 2. The first layer has to be for the Ukrainian armed forces to be as strong as possible to defend this proud country and nation going forward. And the second layer has to be the security guarantees provided by Europe and the United States. And that's what we are working on. And as we all know, the Budapest Memorandum and Minsk did not provide those security guarantees. So we clearly know what it should not be. And we are now working together, Ukraine, the Europeans, the United States, to make sure that the security guarantees are of such a level that Vladimir Putin, sitting in Moscow, will never, ever try to attack Ukraine again.
Thank you for the question. So first and foremost, really, every day our people are working. There are VTC meetings every day on the levels that I've mentioned above, on the level of military command. There are also video and audio meetings because our command is on the front line. They are discussing the structure and infrastructure of how this can look like. There are separate meetings on political level and also on the level of NSAs, Europe and the US all together, as I have mentioned in the statement. That is a fact. That's the beginning of a tremendous amount of work, which is not simple because the guarantees encompass what the partners can give to Ukraine and also how Ukrainian army must look like and where do we get the opportunities to preserve the strength of our army. So, for example, just on this one example, I will explain to you how hard it is. When we are talking about aircraft, for example, F-16 jets, we are very grateful to all the partners for the coordination and for the fact that we have such an air fleet, or the beginning of this fleet, because we do not yet have all the planes that we need now, but we know that these jets will not be enough to guarantee security in the sky for us. And there is a quantity that's needed. I'm not ready to give the exact number now, but we must all be on the same page, and our partners they share it, what quantity of the air fleet we need. So to have that, we need one, political will, second, the capacity of the producer, because you want to get a real help, not in 20 years when it will be produced. That means that somebody must, let you go forward in the queue or give you more of the aircraft, or on top of all of this, who will be financing all that? That's a tremendously difficult process. So when we're talking about the security guarantees, everything is not so easy because of such minor details. All of these details are being discussed. They're all important, and our people are working on the security guarantees. It's important that everybody gives the political will that we are together. As regards the second part of your question about the Russian side, as Mark has now stated, and we are on the same page, the security guarantees to Ukraine are needed so that we, clearly, our grandchildren, our children, know for sure that Russia will not attack us in the future. These are security guarantees against the aggressor, or for the sake of Ukrainian security and sovereignty, our territorial integrity, because Russia is the aggressor. When Russia raises the issue on security guarantees, to be honest, I do not know exactly who poses the threat to them. They have attacked us. They are on our soil. So I do not know which guarantees the aggressor needs. The guarantees of what? So it's I don't understand the substance of this, really. I believe that partners in Europe want that the war does not repeat. The only trigger for that is Russia. Okay? France Press, please.
Дякую. Daria, Agence France Press. My first question for the Secretary General. In continuing the topic of security guarantees, whether or not you discuss the actual foot on the ground and deployment of the troops. І друге питання, також продовжуючи до пана президента. Чи ви вважаєте, що ці...
And the second question to Mr. President, do you think that these Article 5-like guarantees will be efficient without boots on the ground, without the contingents? Thank you.
As President Zelenskyy already said, these discussions are now ongoing at many levels. So the security advisors are working together, the foreign ministers are working together on this. Ukraine is heavily involved through both Andris, both the security advisor and the foreign minister. And the same for the European countries and the United States. So we're really working together on this. And it is too early to exactly say what will be the outcome. But clearly the US will be involved. Clearly we do not want to repeat of the Budapest Memorandum or the Minsk agreement. These security guarantees should be holding. And as I said, as a second layer on top of building the Ukrainian armed forces after the war, moving forward, and NATO will be heavily involved there. We are already, of course, heavily involved through our command in Wiesbaden, which is helping Ukraine to stay in the fight now, but also to help Ukraine to develop its armed forces as a sovereign, proud nation going forward after a peace deal. So NATO is proudly involved in all of that.
I do not know how many countries will be able to provide guarantees to us, but we see that there are various countries with various volumes of the assistance, various capabilities. So it's a bit too early to say who will be able to provide boots on the ground, who reconnaissance and intelligence, who will be present at sea or in the sky, or who is ready to finance. Somebody who, due to their constitutional restrictions, cannot be present here in this or that form, but they're ready to finance. Somebody demining, or like Turkey, that during the last meeting of our coalition of the willing, they said that we want to be part of the security guarantees for Ukraine at sea. We are professional there. We know how to assist in the Black Sea. We will be looking at particularly this topic. Our presence there will be to the fullest. So it's a bit too early to speak about all of the countries. When the infrastructure is laid out on paper, then we will understand who and how can assist. News Live, please. Thank you for this opportunity. Helena Stepovets, News Live. The first question is to President Zelenskyy. Are there any details on how the preparations for your bilateral meeting with Putin are ongoing, especially taking into account the recent statements by Lavrov, who after the Alaska and Washington said that the negotiation representation of the groups has to be increased, but in the background they've increased the amount of strikes against Ukraine. And the second question is to Mr. Mark. Thank you so much for your support, and I'd like to hear the reaction of NATO regarding the most recent Russian attack on the territory of Poland, a couple of dozens of kilometers from Warsaw. Don't you see that Putin is testing the Article 5 of NATO?
Well, we are closely coordinating this with our Polish colleagues. I'm not going to say too much about it, but we are in very close contact with Poland on this. They have also rightly strongly reacted to this latest incident, so you can be assured that we are on top of this.
As regards our talks in Washington with partners, with the United States, and I had quite a long conversation with President Trump, and we had a common meeting, and we have reached a common understanding of how the diplomatic track can proceed. We do not have any agreements with the Russians. We have been talking with President Trump. He's the only person now who is capable of stopping Putin, in my opinion. And we have agreed that it will be right to move to diplomatic track, and I have supported this track that President Trump has suggested. We've spoken about trilateral meeting that's needed. Then he reached out to. Then he had connection with the Russian side, and they and he proposed to have a bilateral track, and it was a Russian proposal to have bilateral track and then trilateral one. I do not want to set any conditions that then somebody will be using as impediments to ending the war, which is why I said we are ready. So most desirable would be trilateral format immediately, but if President Trump believes that this is the format in which we can proceed, we are ready to support bilateral track and then trilateral track. So let's speak about the date. Let's speak about the place, venue. That's it. That's what I have as of now.
Останнє запитання, будь ласка.
Last question, please, BBC.
Hi, Katie Watts from the BBC. My first question is to President Zelenskyy. It's been a week of talks. I've spoken to lots of Ukrainians who don't feel anything will come out of this. What do you say to Ukrainians who think that we're in the same position as we were a week ago? And my second question is to the Secretary General. Obviously, NATO membership's off the table, but there's the Ukrainian flag next to NATO. Is your presence a help or a hindrance or even a provocation? And what happens if Russia says no to any guarantees? Does it have a veto? Thank you.
Well, clearly, Ukraine and NATO, the US, Europe, Ukraine, NATO, we are all working extremely well together. As I mentioned, we have jointly with Ukraine an organization in Poland to capture all the lessons from this terrible war and to understand what it means for all the NATO plans in the future, for Ukraine itself, for the build-up of its armed forces in the future, what lessons we can learn. We have to command in Wiesbaden, from which we organize together with Ukraine all the support for Ukraine in this war from NATO allies. We are heavily involved in making sure that the Ukrainian armed forces, also longer term, will be as interoperable as possible, of the highest standards compared with NATO. We have the comprehensive assistance package. We have this new initiative, thanks to President Trump, by buying from American stockpiles, from the US military, lethal weapons and, of course, air defense systems and interceptors to be paid for by the Europeans, directly being delivered to Ukraine. So NATO is involved in all of this. And we agreed in Washington there is an irreversible path for NATO, for Ukraine, into NATO. And it is true that a couple of NATO allies, including the United States, but also Hungary and others have said, not now, maybe never, this is for the future. But what we are doing in the meantime is making sure that we work as closely together as possible. We are doing that And also when it comes to the meeting last Monday, I think it was very important that not only the European countries were there and Ukraine was there, and of course the American president. And again, let me commend his leadership, the fact that he broke the deadlock with Putin, that he had this enormous success in The Hague with the 5% commitment on defense spending, and then putting secondary sanctions on India, making this initiative possible of delivering American weapons into Ukraine, and basically day in, day out working on bringing peace to this region and ending this terrible war. But it was not only Europeans there, the American president, but also the European countries, the European Union and NATO. So this is all evidence that we work hand in glove, and I visited here in October. I was here in Odessa with the president in April. I'm proud to be back now. I will be back in the future because we have this very close working relationship between NATO and Ukraine.
I'm not sure that I understood your question correctly, but so I'll try to respond, and if anything, please just correct me. I believe that a week ago or 2 weeks ago, Russia was where it stands and where it was standing. It's not willing, it didn't want, and it will not want to end the war. They want to issue ultimatums, and by using the ultimatums to drag their feet to prolong the war, they do everything so that President Trump does not put sanctions on them, and everything to avoid the pressure of the United States that the United States have in their capacity. So their desire did not change at all. The visit to Washington demonstrated the unity of Europe. In a day, the biggest or ones of the biggest countries have gathered around Ukraine. In a day, the leaders gathered and came. And that's a major support for Ukraine. And that is a signal on how the major countries of the world unite, because they're on the side of Ukraine, where the justice is, absolutely. The fact that America, President Trump at that moment said that, okay, we will join the security guarantees, I think that is a major success for Europe. We do not yet know, and please, maybe it's just, showboating, but as of today, it sounded as success, because security guarantees are needed for Ukraine, yes, but without US, Europe will not provide all of its capabilities that is capable to provide. Why? Because of various reasons. The unity of Europe and the US is crucial, is very important, and that is an important signal that was there during our meetings. Yet again, I underscore that I do not know where it will end up. But it is much better than what we had a week or 2 weeks ago. Such unity in Washington happened. Yes, for now it's political. Yes, only the first steps are being taken, that our teams are working on security guarantees. But it was very important signals from America and from the president. And the Russians, now they are trying to do certain things to not have the meeting. The issue is not only about meeting, but about them not willing to end the war. The meeting is one of the components in how to end the war. It's not everything, it's one of the things. And since they do not want to do it, they will be looking for space, for maneuver, how to do it. And we need to narrow this space with the unity of America and Europe, the space they have for the war. Thank you, dear colleagues. The press conference ends with this.